From the top.
From the top.
Welcome back to Punchline, the podcast where we say the quiet part out loud about marketing. I'm Beth Cormack.
And I'm Drue Stinnett. If you've ever dreamed of starting your own marketing business, like imagining creative freedom and financial success, this episode might be your reality check. We're not here to crush your dreams, but just to make sure that maybe they're built on something solid.
Today we're tackling what we like to call the 1099 leap, how to build a sustainable marketing business without driving yourself crazy, without losing your financial stability, personal life, or sanity.
And while social media is full of people posting their business insights, we wanted someone who's going to give us the unfiltered truth. That's why we are thrilled to have Deveney Williams joining us from Sunny Side Up Studio. She's going to be joining us today to talk about the real of what it takes to run your own marketing and creative agency.
So whether you're a corporate girly looking to make the leap to entrepreneurship, or you're already running your own shop, or just really curious about what it takes to really build a successful marketing or freelance business on your own, this episode's going to give you the real talk of what it takes.
Without the toxic hustle culture bullshit that says success requires sacrifice and suffering.
Let's dive in. This is Punchline.
Honestly, that was the first time we've ever done that in 1.5 takes. Pretty good of us.
That was great. Great. I was like, yes, keep it going.
Love it.
1.5 takes. Cool.
Yeah. Deveney, so excited to have you on the show. I think you have just had a reputation that precedes you for sure. I love the work that you guys are doing at your studio, and I can't wait to hear how you've gotten where you are. I want to know just everything about you.
Everything?
Everything.
No, thanks. I'm so glad. I think this is such a cool platform and just a great outlet. I'm so excited to follow the Punchline journey. Yeah, I basically have always been a creative, was a very artsy kid, loved theater, music, drawing, all that stuff. And when I got to college, I'm like, okay, how can I turn this into something that makes money? And I had this amazing guidance counselor named Chris, and he's like, hey, you should really try out this thing called visual communications. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? He's like, yeah, it's a blend of, photojournalism and graphic design. And at the time, I was the least techie person available on the planet. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure about this. And I ended up diving into it. And it was the hardest thing I've done in the world. Like, my brain did not naturally understand design, and anything, you can learn anything. And I had some incredible professors, and having that duality of graphic design and photography has led me into so many rooms and opened up incredible opportunities to this day. After college, I ended up pivoting a bit more from photography into videography, and would offer that service because I found a lot of people were like, hey, I need both types of content. I mean, this is 10 years ago. So I'm like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll figure this out. I'll do this. And I'm just over on my iMac, like remixing my iPhone videos and whatnot, and would just upload those to my portfolio along with all of my design work. And I caught the eye of, I had applied blindly for a UX job just for funsies. And the director looking at my portfolio was like, well, clearly you're not a UX designer, but I actually love your videos. I was like, really? And he ended up bringing me on board. And that's how I ended up in DC at Fannie Mae as the in-house visual storyteller, as a standalone. As a standalone person there. And funny enough, it's actually where I also met my husband, who was a designer recreating the internal journey for mortgage people searching for mortgages that I still don't quite understand. And just went through the ups and downs. My first stint in corporate, learned a lot. I'm like, wow, this is new. Survived for a few years, and then kind of flipped over to the opposite side of NPR. I was always wanted to go into media. But at the time, as soon as I got into media, I'm like, this is so restrictive. This is absolutely not for me. And also realizing the landscape is changing so much of what it means to be in-house in media. As a creative, there's no funding, so you're first on the chopping block. So I just watched so many people get axed. I'm like, you know what? I'm out. I'm gonna do something different. I guess in parallel of all of this as well, I've always operated as a freelancer, so doing content work, doing design work, anything like that, because I needed some sort of outlet. And all of that accumulated through COVID. And in COVID, really switched to more of again, a pivot to strategy and social media rather than traditional media and production work. Because I'm like, I need something that I can do remotely when the world shuts down and still be able to sustain myself. And yeah, I gave a few more corporate places a try. And at the end of the day, was like, you know what? I have done my due diligence here and I'm going to go out on my own. That's the skinny.
Nice. And yeah, I think Dev, like so Dev and I met in DC through mutual friends.
Yeah.
So I was roommates with Kat Battaglia, and then her friend Sana was your roommate. And then I think that's
Yes.
how we connected. And then you were doing this really cool like photo project called Serial Girls, where you would have these like beautiful women of all different, shapes and sizes in a
Yeah.
bathtub with milk and Fruit Loops and like different. And it was just like such a cool, I don't know. And I'm probably not giving it justice the way I'm talking about it, but like that was like, I saw that work when I don't remember why or how we got connected, but like I just remember like someone sending that to me and I'm like, this girl is so fucking cool. Like she was just doing these like really cool projects. And then, we've just stayed in contact since then because we're both in like the marketing and creative world. And then yeah, you founded Sunny Side Up Studio. Was it last year?
Yeah. It was at the end of 2023 when,
Okay.
well, two things there was like the switch from really freelancer to business owner. And at the time, I
Hmm.
was an in-house social strategist at this global company, and the writing was clearly on the wall. And I'm like, you know what? This is the time. It was also right before I turned 30, or I had just turned 30. I'm like, you know what? New decade, new me. Like I'm going forward with
Yeah.
this. And yeah, and I launched it. And then a few months later, ended up departing from that role and went full time with the business. So it's been a little over a year now, which is really exciting.
Nice. And I think like yeah, when we met, I was running my own agency, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you
it
had
must
your
have
own
been.
agency.
And I think when you were just talking about how like you're early in your career when you're just kind of like teaching yourself and you're like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just gonna like look up how to do this stuff. Cause I feel like my experience was the same way. I was just talking like my last meeting I just had, I was just talking to this woman about my journey and how when I started my agency when I was 23, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. And I was like wanting it to be social media, but people still don't invest in social media in the way that they should. 10 years ago, they were absolutely not like at all. So in order for me to build an actual sustainable business and sustainable agency, I had to teach myself all of these other areas of marketing that like I had no fucking idea. Like I was like looking up like YouTube videos on running Facebook ads and I started to write press releases for people. I taught myself how to build websites on Wix. I'm like, I don't even know what I'm doing. But like I just like that was the way that you had to do it in order to really sell yourself. And you just have to find those people on the way that are willing to invest in you. And I think there's something to be said about with your Sunny Side Up Studio currently, you're the face of most of the content, and it's so awesome to see. And you have such like a sunshine energy, radiant energy about you, so it works great for like the actual brand of the company. But I was also talking to someone recently about how like he owns like an IT company, but he was like, when I bring clients on, they don't necessarily want to work with like the business, they want to work with me. And he's like, I don't know if that makes sense. And I'm like, no, that makes so much sense. Like it's really about just like, and that's how I feel about when I tell people too that like B2B and B2C marketing, it's all in the same. You're talking to people. Like people want to work with people. They don't want to be spoken to like a brand or a business. It doesn't matter how much buying power you have. And I think being comfortable with like, being a founder behind the scenes, willing to put yourself out there and be the face of the business is so valuable because I feel like that's the biggest selling point is like, learning how to position yourself as like, you want to work with, I'm going to be a great person to work with. My work speaks for itself, but I'm also a person and I'm also a great person to work with. So I think that's like such a fun, I don't know, thing about like modern day marketing.
Oh, 100%. I feel like people are attached to founders, and that was one thing I mean, had so many shifts, but when I was operating, I really feel like I operated as a freelancer up until the end of 2023. And then starting 2024 is when I started showing up as a business owner. And so much of that was really understanding that, okay, I am a founder of this brand. So it's not a huge agency, but I need to start acting like it. And one of those things was putting myself out there. And it's funny, as someone who creates content for lots of people. Like my job is to make people feel beautiful and comfortable in front of the camera so they show up as the best versions of themselves to their audience. And I'm great at directing. I'm great at kind of like breaking that third wall and getting people to feel at ease and all of that. But I'm like, okay, I need to do this for me too, because a lot of the work I was posting, especially at the time, was content focused. So it was on my clients. And I'm like, well, how are they going to distinguish me from my clients? Like they don't know my clients, yada, yada. And so I was like, it felt so awkward. I'm like, this feels like so, like there's just so much ego. I'm like, wait, I feel like I don't want to be posting out photos of myself all the time of like, hey, like, look at me, look at me. And I'm like, wait, hold on. I need to make money. Like, I need people to remember me. This is a business. How are people not? You need that brand affiliation. And right now, like, that's my face. Like, a lot of our
Yep.
work is B2C work that, varies all over from like web to content to social. But it's like, I am the consistent factor in that. And so I'm like, you know what? I told all my friends, I'm like, hey, if you want to unfollow the business page, do it because it's going to be a lot of my face. So just get used to that. And then also most recently, I started doing more video work of just filming myself talking. And I'm like, oh my gosh, who is going to want to hear this? The whole point is like all of the content I'm making is for either current clients or future clients to build that trust. So that way, by the time we get on the phone, they're like, okay, I kind of understand like her tone or her approach and like how she goes about things, because trust is the biggest asset. Like you were saying, Beth, the portfolio speaks for itself. Like I'm very talented, but there's hundreds of thousands of very, very talented designers out there, and you can work with any of them. Like what's going to really change your focus is going to be trust and price, more,
Yep.
more or less. And a lot of people, it's like, I get so many clients who are wounded and they're like, oh my gosh, I have this one client right now and they've been in a contract with this designer for years where they have to pay a monthly fee of $4.99 to the designer, and they're not even making the changes that this client needs. And they're also holding all of their assets hostage to the client. So the client we're onboarding for them and we have to basically like redo all of their assets. And I mean, obviously they're going to pay for it, but I'm like, you have 100% ownership of this. This is yours. And it's a hand holding experience because I'm like, I'm not going to fuck you over. Like, that is not my
Yeah.
style. Like, I'm very upfront. And that's why they're like, here, like, there's no negotiation about price. Like, it's just like, you can trust me. And they do after a few conversations. And like, also some other ways where I try to like instill that trust because people are wounded out there. If you
No,
can make
seriously.
like, that's like a huge, huge win.
Yeah, I've definitely been on the receiving end of some agencies and freelancers who maybe aren't working or earning that trust. I'm really interested. I think I'm just like thinking about this from the perspective of somebody who maybe is like currently in-house. I don't know what you said earlier about being in-house and kind of seeing the writing on the wall. I feel like there are a lot of marketers and creatives right now who maybe are in that position. And like, I think if you could go back to that time, what is maybe like one piece of advice that you wish you had heard or that you maybe did hear but really didn't listen to that kind of you just would love to tell people who are in that position now?
Well, two things. So one, and I kind of listened to both, which I feel like did set me up for a bit of success, but one is always having a personal project. So what Beth was talking about earlier, my Serial Girls project, like the whole project came from when I was in corporate doing mindless work and I was getting a great paycheck, but I was like, I have no creative outlet. Like I'm so young. I have so much energy. Like I have so much potential. Like I don't want it wasted here. So, at the same time, being a photographer, it was just, it hurt so much to see how much people didn't like their appearance. And like people would come to me and be like, hey, like, can you edit this out? Or hey, can you change this? Or can you change that? And I'm like, I see a perfectly beautiful person. Like, that doesn't necessarily fit into like what mainstream media is saying is beautiful, but like, why are we even adhering to all be like carbon copies of one another? I just think that's bullshit. So the whole project, its basis was like photographing real people, or sorry, real women to show them in their real skin. So it was like different shapes and sizes, textures, all of that. And the whole thing was no Photoshop, like no Photoshop. And the second layer of that was being consumed like as women, like we're constantly consumed by so many different things. So I thought it'd be fun to play on that motif and put women like into a bowl of cereal, which was my bathtub. And so like each woman like had different types of cereal with them. And one, it also allowed these people who were not traditional models to get into a bathtub. And when you're in a bathtub, you're relaxed. You also have this like milk, so you can kind of choose like what parts of your body you want out. So it's naturally like very disarming, very comfortable. Like I'm a crazy person, so I'm behind the camera, like making people feel like whatever. Like
Yeah.
they're just having a good time. We have the music going. And the third part was I was, living in a in a 9-person row house. So I didn't have a studio. I'm very DC. And I have bathroom though, so that's why I would, and a bathtub is great because the white reflects, everything looks good. Yeah, and then this project just put me on the map, like in DC, of just growing my community. I was new there, and so I was like, hey, like this is what I'm about. Like I am about authenticity. I'm about, photographing real people, real stories. Like this is me, or like collaboration, like doing something cool. Like these were not just my friends. I would meet people on the street and be like, hey, this is my
Gonna come get
project.
in my bathtub. Yeah.
So doing that, it just really like it let people this reputation build a little bit. And I'm known as the cereal girl, like for so many things, which I love
Yeah.
forever. Hey, maybe I should do a part two of that. But the whole bit of that project was it was also not paid. Like I was actually spending
Yeah.
so much money. Like would buy so much milk and cereal, like go to the grocery store, lugging back. They didn't have a car, like 4 gallons of
Yeah.
milk, like building my muscles, cereal, and then like grapes are like a little snack 'cause I wanted people to like feel comfortable when they came over. It's comical. But yeah, so doing that all is to say, like while I had an in-house job, like I was working 9 to 5, and then people would come over and shoot from like 7 to 10. So that was my life for like a year, and then editing, and I produced content, I produced the calendar, all of that. It was just really, it was a great way to get to build a portfolio of work, like outside of random freelance work, of like representative of where I wanted to
Yep.
be, because I wasn't being paid for that sort of work. So I'd say like if you're
Yeah.
in-house and like the writing is on the wall, and even if you're in-house and the writing is not on the wall, I am such a proponent for having like multiple lanes, because in this economy in 2025,
Yes.
like nothing is guaranteed. It really is not. And even what Beth is saying, like earlier, like you taught yourself how to do paid ads, like how to build websites. Like that's a lot of where my business has come out of too. I'm like, I see a need, I'll figure it out. Even if you're in-house, like you're disposable. Like I hate
Yep.
to say that, and I
Yeah.
hate that that's our reality, but everyone is disposable, and it's so sad. So it's like make yourself indisposable. Like, build those skill sets that you can like have a backup. Like even if it's something small, like okay, I'm doing, I have like one client that's paying like half my rate, but it's still like building a portfolio towards something that is supplementing a full-time
Yep.
rate. And quickly, the second thing I would say is to always be building your emergency savings account, like because that thing is going to come in handy. And like friends have recommended me doing that in the past. And at one point I listened, at some points I didn't. And I got to a point a few years ago where I wouldn't buy anything for myself unless I could match it in my savings account. And that really helped me build up a cushion. And trust me, that thing has been used.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's touching on what you said about like kind of going back to just like learning different skills. And I think as Drew and I just had an episode, we just recorded an episode about how like the differences between like being a creative marketing girly and then like the data and analytics side of marketing and how those kind of two things work together. And I think we talked about this in that episode a little bit, but I think it's relevant here too around the fact that like of course, like the people on the data analytics side of marketing, they're usually paid more, they're usually taken more seriously, but there's something to be said about the creative side too, because I think this side of it, where I think all three of us really naturally are, even if we've like learned the other side as well, we are resourceful and scrappy as fuck. Like I feel like we can just like take something from nothing and build it into something really fucking cool. And I don't think that skill is, I think it's so fucking valuable, and I don't think all marketers have it because they're always taught to be siloed in their lane, stay in this like comfortable where they're at. But like as like creatives, I feel like we've always had to be scrappy. We've always had to teach ourselves
Yeah.
different skills. We've always had to learn how to work with different types of people and take different creative approaches. And I think that is so valuable, especially when you're building your own company, because you're going to run into all of these different scenarios that you've never dealt with before. And you're kind of just like needing to think on the spot in terms of like, okay, I really want to work with this person, but they may not have the budget, or they may not be in like the industry that I'm comfortable working in, but like, I really want the like the business. I don't know. So there's just like constantly like ways of building yourself and your brand in a way that I feel like if you're creative, it just comes a lot more naturally and easier versus, people who are non-creative.
Definitely. Yeah, I think being resourceful is also like something I look for in people, and also like just one of the best skill sets to have or to work on, because I mean, I've worked at companies where you've had a $20,000 budget, and I've worked with other companies where it's like $20, like make something happen. So like to have
Yep.
that flexibility and know like what's possible, and even for myself, like doing marketing, it's like you have to be scrappy and resilient, because a lot of times, like for example, if I'm on set or something's happening, it's like, a model, like maybe an outfit doesn't fit, or like a lens is malfunctioning, or, there's a parade randomly decided to happen in the street and like you're about to record, or, like there's so many variables that could go wrong, and you have to be able to be adaptable the whole time, because if you're not, things can go south. It's like sink or swim. And I think that's a lot, like, especially like being from Boston, shout out, that like we're very like adaptable, resourceful people. It's like, okay, if it's not
Mhm.
working, like make it work, find a way. Like,
Yep.
there's always two sides, if something closes down, like, find the back route, like find the back door, like how are you going to get
Yep.
in? And yeah, I think that stems from definitely being creative and like putting yourself in boxes so you can problem solve and get out of them as creative solutions is so important too. With my serial go project, like I put a limitation on like a creative limitation of like what I was shooting, like how I was shooting, things like that. So it could like grow in different ways. And I think also putting those limitations on, which we often find ourselves in the workforce, it actually forced us to be more creative, because it's like, okay, well, this is how you envisioned, maybe higher up only sees it as one way with one solution. You're like, well, actually, with these resources, you can actually do X, Y, and Z.
Totally. And on that note, I want to transition into a topic that I feel like a lot of people are curious about, and it's something that's top of mind when you're making the transition from corporate to entrepreneurial work is money and finances. And I know it's like an uncomfortable topic, but I think it's really important. I'm kind of curious from your perspective, because something that I know that I struggled with really hard. And I think it was because of a mix of just like I was young and didn't really know what I was doing, but also just like, everyone's kind of young and broke in their 20s, I feel like. I guess, yeah, how did you handle that? Like, I know you said like having an emergency savings is really important, but outside of that, like, how are you handling kind of the financial transition from steady paychecks to entrepreneurial income and not necessarily knowing how much you're going to make the next month or the next 6 months? You're like, I'm currently working through it. I don't want to talk about it.
No, one, I'm wicked transparent about money, and I think especially as women, we should talk about money more. Like I was not taught jack shit about money growing up. Like besides my
Yeah.
mom telling me to put my communion money on a CD. Like it was just like we're not taught how to invest. Like we're not
Yeah.
taught how to build out like long scale. Like men have these conversations all the time, and it's just so crazy. And it's seen as such a taboo. Like I talk to my friends, I'm like, how much money are you making? How are you charging for this? What are you doing for that? I'm like, I'm charging this. What are you charging? Okay, well, this makes sense there. Like we should be doing that, because I also think money should be, it's set off of value. Like, it's not just like it's our
Yep.
experience. Like, how quickly can you get something done? Like, okay, maybe an intern is only making $15, $20 an hour because you have to guide them so much, versus someone else hourly fee is $150. Like, there's a reason behind that. But to pivot back to what you're saying, because I feel like I could talk about that a lot. My career has never been linear. It's never been linear. Like I've never had like full stability, because I think naturally being a creative, your job is always on the line. And I think that, my focus has been in production, and like production work has always been on the line. It's always like a very fickle industry. So I knew that I need to have a backup plan. Like even in college, I mean was going towards the creative path. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to be a creative, I need to know how to speak a second language in case I can't get a job. So I actually am like pretty good at Spanish. Like can get
Yeah.
through. So I'm like, maybe I could be an interpreter or like anything like that. I
Yeah.
don't know. And so I would say like having something you could fall back on as like a secondary skill is like one thing I think is foundational. don't stray away from being a creative or like where your passion is, but also have a second lane of like, okay, well, I can definitely make money off of this. And for me, it was language. Like I worked at the Apple store and like was hired not because of my tech skills, but because it was like I was willing to learn, and also I spoke Spanish and I was living in like a predominantly Spanish area, so I would like interact well with Spanish clients. So having that in your back pocket is one thing. The other thing is I have always I've been in house, but I've been fired, I've been laid off, I've left work jobs, like you name it, and it's happened. So I think transitioning from like a 1099 to a freelancer position, or I'm sorry, to being independent, I think you should always, you can keep your job as long as possible, but also build your personal brand. Like building up your personal brand is very foundational, and it's not necessarily going to be yielding you money, but it will yield your reputation. So you're building that trust over the years. For over a decade, people know me as a photographer. It's like, can you shoot this? Can you do that? Can you design that? And so now when it's transitioning into business, it's like, okay, wait, what's your business? Well, it's dev. Like, yeah, right. So it's like that trust, and it's kind of that like, what is that? Like, no, it's not currency, but it's like emotional currency or whatnot of
Yeah.
just that community.
Yeah.
And I feel like the third part, and this is also not money related, but it's building your community, like putting yourself in rooms, either like virtually or in person, is literally life changing. And like not being scared. Like when I go to an event, I'm like 5 people. Like I need to talk to five
Yep.
people and get 5 numbers, like or whatever that day is. I go up to people all the time. I'm like, hey, what's going on? What's your name? What do you do? Like what brought you here? And like just not being scared to have those conversations, because you never know. And I've met so many people, and like people I've met years ago, and they've like now just actually had a project from someone I worked with in college, and that was like 10 years ago, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've just been following your journey and like all of this, and like hired me for a project, and just like building those seeds and like planting those seeds, because it can be very real, and it takes a long time for some things to form, but it can be exhausting. Like you're in house, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, 40 hours a week. Like I also have so like a personal life and all of that. How do I find time? Myself, I try to go to like one event a week, or like at least I try, or like for a month if I'm going to like something on the weekend or something like that, because there is that social currency. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
social currency of like having that network is like, so when you are transitioning, or let's say like worst case scenario, like you suddenly get laid off or fired or something like happens, you're like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like that's when you lean on those people that you've been meeting, whether they're just like warm connections or anything. It's like, hey, like, I mean, Beth, you're incredible at this. Like, I feel like this is like your
Yeah.
superpower of doing that. It's like, hey, like, how's it going? Like, and not being scared to put yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That
And
is
I feel like
superpower.
I try. No. I feel like, but I do feel like Deb, I always admire you for like, you are always like traveling for events or conferences, and I feel like a lot of people don't do that. Like especially when you're like entrepreneurship, you're trying to like, how should I be spending this money? Like, I feel like I should be saving it, or I feel like I should be spending it on equipment. And a lot of times people don't invest it in themselves and building their social currency. And I feel like you do. Like I feel like you're always going to these really cool creative workshops or creative events. And I think that is so important. And I wish that I did more of that when I was building my own companies, because like you said, like those are the people that you're going to lean on when, you do need more clients, or, you suddenly get laid off. And I think that during this whole unemployment process, that is something that I have realized tenfold. Yeah. And I think what you were saying, Deb, about like the importance of building a personal brand, like I think that is so important, and leaning on your community, because again, like in these trying fucking times with the job market, you never know when you're really going to need people. And I found like in the last 6 months of me job searching, like realize this tenfold, that community is everything. And even complete strangers on the internet, like more people are willing to help you than not, and more people are rooting for you than not. And I know like people shit on LinkedIn and talk about how it's cringy and da 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 da, but like that has by far been like the best like medium for me to build my personal brand, get opportunities, make connections, get in the right rooms with people, have conversations. And if I didn't wasn't like putting myself out there on that platform, I don't know what I would do. Like I'm getting all these clients now and they're all coming from LinkedIn because they're seeing and all of them reference and they're like, I love your content on LinkedIn, I think. And they're like not even seeing my portfolio. Like they just want
Yeah.
to talk to me.
Yeah.
And like we were saying before, it's like they're connecting with me, not just my business and what I do. And yeah, like I'll share them my examples of work after the fact. But like the reason why they're connecting with me is because they're seeing, they all mention, they're like, your content's super vulnerable. It's really refreshing to see. And I think that's just a testament to like, again, A, building your personal brand, B, being comfortable with just like showing up as your full self online. And that's really fucking hard to do. And I think it's admirable when I see other people do it and I try to emulate that in my content. But yeah, I just think it's so valuable. And I think that is like by far, in my opinion, having a community of people around you and like who are going to be willing to rally for you when you need them to is so fucking important. And I think more people need to focus on that when like in their professional life.
Oh, 100%. I would say like I have a twofold to this. One, like investing in your personal brand is so important, even if it's like on your personal social media. So that could be on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, or anything like that. I started doing on LinkedIn, I took as a priority a few years ago, and I would do like just one post a week, like one post a week, whether that was talking about my in-house job, something relevant to myself. I do a lot of I do a lot of sketchnoting. So like when people talk, I just like to draw things out and people love that. And it's so funny because I'm like, oh my God, this is such shit. Like my art friends would be like, okay, it's weak, but it's just kind of like how my brain works and people are attracted to that and or at least like seeing that common theme. So it's so cool. People are like, oh, I love your note taking. This is so fun. It's just something that I do so I can remember things because we're overwhelmed with information and then just sharing it up and being raw about that, but also being consistent. So I've fallen off a little bit, but I do try to post at least once a week on LinkedIn and other platforms, or if it's on, social media or something, like just letting people know like what your interests are so they can align with that. If it's like food or travel or your dog or something. And it's like, okay, can you make kind of like it's social, well, social's our thing. So it's like, can you make something like cute and sexy, like on the fly? Yeah, of course I can. Like, here you go. Can I make something coherent or like try out new styles? And one time I got a position actually because this girl I knew again from high school who we did not run in the same circles at all, but she had seen me posting on Instagram and was like, I know you love to write and stuff. You're a really good writer. So I think you'd be great for this like content strategist position. And I was like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like totally that's in my wheelhouse. Like and just transition to that. And you never know who's watching or who's kind of like silently viewing and being like, oh, that's cool. And like sometimes it can feel cringy or like over the top, but you've got to be promoting yourself because nobody else will. And that's something I've like, tried to learn and like instill in myself a few years ago. And I'm just kind of relentless about promoting myself because I'm like, you know what? No one's going to make your business succeed or like make anyone else remember you except for you. So, as long as you're not being an asshole, like why not? Like put some, as if
Yeah,
it's like positive and fun and adding content, put it out there. I'd say just like
totally.
one other thing I wanted to mention that I just think is so funny looking back. When I was in house, actually at Fannie Mae, I was so scared to be myself because I'm like, oh my gosh, I am in this corporate environment. I don't know how should I be? How should I act? And I changed all of my social media names to something different and I made my business be my name. So my business name was Deveney Williams and I made my personal social medias were Lolita Doris.
We've all been there.
No, and it's like it wasn't on private because I'm like I've never put anything on private. Like that's just
Yeah.
my style. But like I was like, so if they find me, they find me. But I just wasn't comfortable showing up as myself. Like I felt like I was code switching every day as I stepped into the office as somebody new, and I was like so scared. I even did that like, and they would say I like segregated myself from my work, and so like Deveney Williams, DeveneyWilliams.com, all this stuff, it had nothing to do with me. There was not a single photo of me. It was all client facing, nothing about my personality. And then a few years later, I realized I'm like, wait, I've done this completely wrong. Like the business should have me in it. Like that's why people are working with me. It's like because it's me. So I've switched things up. It's so funny how we think that this like separation of, like state and church works when in reality, like people are coming to you and they haven't even looked at your portfolio. They're like, wait, I love
Yep.
your vibe. Let's work
Yeah.
together. Check. And you're like, wait, okay, like sure.
Yeah.
But also, I
Literally.
can't do this if you want to see any like client testimonials or like all these other things I've gently curated for you to perceive. But
No, I like the vibe. I just like the
Yeah.
vibe.
yeah, exactly. It's all vibe.
But I think like if I were listening to this episode, like one thing that I would be really curious about, and that I think one thing our listeners at home are really curious about is maybe like, how do you get the first client? Like, do you have any advice? I think either one of you, you're so knowledgeable about that. But I think for a lot of people, that's kind of the first scary step.
Beth, do you want to kick it off or?
Well, my first client ever was a regular at the bar that I worked at. So I feel like for me, it was just random as fuck. And like, it's really, like you said, Deb, about like knowing how to sell yourself and advocate for yourself. And people can smell confidence and people can, like, I feel like it's really a lot of it is off of vibes. And like, I was like, I just quit my first 9 to 5 and I was trying to start this agency. It was 23. I was working at a bar full time in between trying to like just figure out what the fuck I wanted to do. And yeah, this regular that would always come in and him and I had a great relationship. Yeah, I remember I had just I worked at a sports bar and we had this like chips and queso app or something. And I had just spilt queso all over my fucking black shirt. And I was like, so the rest of the shift had a huge stain on my shirt. And this regular came in and like, I don't know. So I was like talking to him about what I was trying to do. And he was a founder at this restaurant in DC that he was starting up. And he was like, well, we're looking for a social media person if you want to like do it. And I was like, yeah. And I just like remember I had this huge queso stain on my shirt and this guy's like asking to do business with me. And I was like, all right. And then I went home and I immediately Googled like how to write a fucking proposal, contract templates. I did not know. And then it was just so casual and easy. And then from there, like he introduced me to other people in the space and it just kind of grew from there. But I don't know. So mine was like kind of just random, but I feel like that's how it works a lot of the times.
I think it really
Yeah.
is because it's like it's through organic connections. Like my first client was actually someone I was in school with. She was a Taylor Swift impersonator, and this was 2015, so she was huge. She's so cool. Her name's Elizabeth. Look her up. She's still doing performances, but she hired me. She's like, hey, I really want to do a music video. Oh my gosh, I can't think of the song right now, but this Taylor Swift song, I listened to it probably like 620 times through like the edits and then while we're on set. But I'm like, yeah, she's like, how much do you charge for a music video? I had never shot a music video ever. And I was like, I don't know, like $400. Like, she's like, yeah, that's great. I was like, okay. Proceeded to be a 10-hour shoot at my house, doing like all different sets. And her boyfriend at the time like helped do these like sheets. They were like moving. We had the car at night. Like it was incredible. And it was such a fun experience. And then so it's really like who you know. And honestly, still to today, it's 99% of my business, if not 100%, is through organic connections and referrals. But the reason behind that is because I'm also relentless about telling people I'm available to work. Like I am available. I
was just gonna say that.
I am available because I feel like a lot of people don't say it. They're like, wait, I need clients, or they try to do these things where it's like, oh, only a special offer for the next month. And it's very coy. And it's like, no, this is my service and I am available. Do you want to work with me? Yes or no? And nobody responded. Like nobody, do it again. And then do it again. And then do it on another platform. And then go to an in-person place. And then do it again. And do it till you're blue in the face. Like it takes like 12 touch points for someone to even understand what you're doing. And that's only one vertical of your messaging. So if you have multiple verticals or multiple offerings, like you need to be on repeat. Like you need to, like, you might be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of myself. Like your friends will be like, oh my God, I'm so sick of her and her business. Like your partner might be there, but it's like, who cares? Like until it reaches that person, like you can't stop talking. Like gotta have the gift to gab, like or find somebody else who will promote you. So
Yeah.
So, and I would just say last thing is like also having your services, because that's something I didn't have. Really, it would be like fluctuating, and it still does to a point. But now when people come to Sunny Side Up, it's like, hey, like these are, my core service offerings. Like, and then if they want to know rates, like these are our starting rates. Do you want to work with us? Great. If not, no. Okay, have a great day. And having that like queued up makes it a lot easier for potential clients to come in the door and be like, oh wow, they have their shit together.
Yeah. No, that reminds me, like what you were saying about people who might be like, "Oh, limited time offer." This is so random, but like, I'm a pretty heavily tattooed person, and I see tattoo artists all the time who are like, "Books closed through 2026," and like, "How are you getting business?"
Yeah.
I know I think about that a lot, even when we're working with agencies and freelancers. When I've like done that from an in-house side, like you want to be easy and approachable, like easy to work with and very approachable. Like I don't know, I think like you were saying earlier, Beth, like B2B and B2C, you're still just talking to people, and I think that I from a consumer perspective, working with agencies and contractors, I think that gets lost a lot where people want to be, I don't know, maybe it's who they are, but it's certainly not who I am, showing
Yeah.
up with a super polished and almost like arrogant demeanor. Like
Yeah.
the people who are going to hire you at these companies or for their businesses or whatever, like I feel like you have to work so closely together and you should just be
100%.
nice. I don't know.
Yes, 100%. And I think like when you have that messaging around like limited time offer, like that immediately just builds a wall. And I'm like, no, like I'm not connecting with that. Like it's just like,
Like, are
I
you going to
just,
have time to work with me? Like,
right.
or are you so
Yeah.
busy? Yeah.
No, it is.
Yeah.
I get also like if you are booked out, like that's incredible. Like you're booked out, like am I
Yeah.
through a long client project? But it's also like be transparent like about it. Or if you're a business, like add another person on so you can service more people. Because like you can't grow
100%.
if you're just like that's what we're doing right now. We're actually adding designers on because I'm like, we need to add more capacity. And so
Yep.
when we don't want to turn other potential clients off, how can we do that? And it's going to be on a contractor basis, which is so exciting.
Yeah.
It's like I can't employ someone right now, like full time, but it would be incredible. Like, so there is flexibility for to do more stuff, like make more work. Because there's one thing my teacher and my professor in college said, like, Deveney, there's never a shortage of bad design out there, so you'll always have a job. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Farron, you are so right. You're so right.
Oh my
Words only
God.
five when I'm gonna cry.
Going. So this is something I struggled with when I was building my companies in the past because as we've been talking about, really most of this episode is about like how people are wanting to work with you as a person versus your business, right? And Deb, you were saying how like you separated when you were in-house, you were separating kind of your personal life from your work self and showing up differently. But something I really struggled with is like, yes, I know it's important to be like the face of my brand and whatever, but I was also like tying my entire identity to my work because there was no real separation. It was like I was the business, I was the company. And so creating that kind of like work-life balance and boundaries within myself in terms of like, okay, yes, this is a huge part of your life and this is a huge part of who you are and showing up and I love what I do. At the same time, it's hard to kind of shut that part off when you need to go enjoy your life and hang out, go on a date with your partner or hang out with your friends. And like when you are your business, it's really hard to kind of create those boundaries. So I'm curious how you've been doing that and if you have like any advice for people kind of navigating through that.
Oh yeah. And I think this is probably like my personality, but like even when I was in house, I remember I was like, oh, you get I had 14 days of paid vacation. I was like, incredible. Trip to Europe, trip to Texas. Here we go. Girls, we're going. And people were like,
Yeah.
wait, you're gonna use your vacation time? I'm like, of course I'm going to use my vacation time. What are you talking about? Seize the day, baby. And I was just like that, like I will always work, but I also will also enjoy life. And so
Yeah.
fast forward now to like being a business owner, I've never not every year, like I love to travel and like I always take a vacation, like whether that can be like wherever it needs to be, I need to go because that's how I get inspired. And I'm just also burnout is gross. Like I don't
Yeah.
think there's nothing sexy or appealing about working like 300-hour weeks. I don't even know if that is a thing. But I don't think there's anything cool about that. But I will say it's not like every single day is balanced for sure. Like, I mean, we're going through a period where we are working a lot. Like, we have a lot on our plate, and that's fine because I want it. Like, I want to have the work. But at the same time, like this week we've been last night I closed my laptop at 10:30. at night. Like the night before, it was like 11:30. Is that sexy or the goal? Absolutely not. But I know that we're kind of in this period where we're working with this big tech client and we're trying to get to the finish line. But tonight, I'm going out with my girls and we're going to the Gardner Museum. Tomorrow, I'm going to ICA First Friday. And then I have absolutely nothing on Saturday. Like I do make sure that there's those times. So there it definitely fluctuates. I'd say through periods. It's not day to day. Like Monday through Thursday, maybe I'm swamped as hell. Like, and I am working at night, but at the same time, I have the luxury of working from home, you know. Also work with my husband as like my partner in business and life. So it's like we can balance each other out. Like he's cooking dinner and then like I'm gonna do the dishes while he's doing something else. And then we go outside because it's finally nice out and we're working. And it's a balance of we enjoy the work that we're doing, but it's also a job. And like life is too short. And like at the end of the day, we're working to sustain ourselves to be independent and make an income and make money. But also, money is not everything. Like, health is important. Like, I make sure that I'm working out like almost not every day, but there's some sort of movement because if I'm not healthy in my body, then I won't be able to work and I won't be happy. So I actually won't come to the table with great ideas and I will be suffering and my clients will be suffering. So same thing, like we have a few vacations planned and I always do I feel like every trip I make like a work and fun. It's got to be a little business and a little pleasure. Like we're going to LA for a conference in July, but then we're going to go to San Francisco and Vancouver and see some friends. So it's definitely about the balance and it doesn't happen at once, but if it happens in periods, I think it makes it definitely more digestible because at the end of the day, tomorrow is not promised. Not to be so
Yeah.
Yep.
you got to enjoy your life too.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important boundary to set with yourself very early on when you're starting your company or even thinking of, and I think that even if you're working in-house corporate, like those boundaries are so fucking important to set with yourself early on in your career because it's so easy to get into the habit of not having those boundaries and just continuing to burn yourself out. And as someone who's been through burnout, like it's fucking terrible. And it's like, it really, you cannot, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can't show up for other people and you can't do your job properly. And I think it's just important to set those boundaries with yourself immediately, like, because it's a dark hole to go down if you do not.
100%. That's why I'm like, I'm not glorifying late night working at all, but it's kind of just, it's for a period. And I know that I'm also going to have time to recover because yeah, and especially if you're working in-house, I mean, girl, that salary is capped. Like, they're not giving you a bonus for that.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, that's so true. And I think, Beth, I feel like this is maybe 4 out of 5 episodes where we've kind of hit on that note of boundaries being so important in some capacity or another for one motivation or another. I don't know. I think maybe I need to heed that advice a little bit more. We could make a whole episode on professional boundaries. But Deveney, thank you so much for coming on our show, dude. This was, like I said, just such an inspiring conversation and like such a pleasure learning from you and hearing about your experiences. Thank you for letting us hold you over a little bit on our time.
Yeah.
Well,
But yeah, no, this was great. And yeah, if you want to end it, like, where can people find you? Like, Sunny Side Up, what's your website? Where are your socials? Where should people follow you and check out your work?
yeah, well, you can check out our website. It's ssustudio.com or on Insta and Facebook as the Sunny Side Up Studio. And yeah, all my stuff is just Deveney Williams. So just brand myself across the board. But yeah, thank you guys for having me on. This was such a great conversation. You guys are awesome.
Of course. And I'm just gonna endorse your Sunny Side Up Studio Instagram and just like the branding is so on point, and I'm like literally obsessed. And Drue was saying the same thing. Like, it's so fucking cool.
It's so gorgeous.
So even if like you're not even a marketing like, it's just like a fun follow. So like I would highly recommend.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks so much for being on with us today. What's our little spiel for punchline?
Yeah. If you're listening at home, please go follow Deveney and check her out everywhere we mentioned. Also, check out Beth and I on LinkedIn. We have a Substack that comes out every Thursday called Brain Rot. That's Punchline's little sister. And it would mean the world to us if you would continue following and subscribing on Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this. And, leave a review. Beth and I love words of affirmation, so we'd love to hear your feedback.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right. Well, we'll see you guys next week.
We'll see you next week.